What if lasting happiness isn't found in suppressing all your feelings, but in learning which ones matter, which ones harm, and how to live in harmony with your nature? What if the pursuit of virtue, often celebrated as the highest good, misses something essential: our need for pleasure, comfort, and peace of mind? Today we explore two powerful answers to these questions: Stoicism and Epicureanism. We'll compare how they view emotion, virtue, and what it means to be truly happy. And I'll argue that Epicureanism gives us a better guide for real life in our messy, emotional, joy-seeking world. Here, we explore the big ideas that shaped the past and can still shape how we think, feel, and live today. If you crave clarity, wisdom, and practical philosophy that helps you feel more alive, not just more disciplined, you're in the right place. Let's begin. To start, a quick sketch of each. Stoicism, founded by Zeno of Citium and developed by figures like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, teaches that virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, self-control, is the sole true good. Happiness, or flourishing, comes from living in accordance with nature and reason, regardless of external circumstances. Emotions are often seen as disturbances, things to be moderated, disciplined, or transformed. Epicureanism, founded by Epicurus, holds that pleasure, understood broadly, including mental tranquility and absence of pain, is the highest good. Virtue is valuable because it supports pleasure and minimizes suffering. Emotions are not to be suppressed per se, but understood, shaped, and engaged so they contribute to well-being rather than discord. Stoicism tends to treat many emotions, especially negative ones like anger, fear, envy, as errors of judgment. Stoics believe that much of our suffering comes from misinterpreting events, desiring what's not up to us, or clinging to external outcomes. The Stoic goal is not to destroy emotion entirely, but to cultivate equanimity, to respond rather than react, using reason as a guide. Joy is acceptable, but ideally joy born of virtue and correct view, not from chasing externals. Epicureanism takes a somewhat different view. Emotions are natural, desires and aversions are part of human experience. But the Epicurean asks, which desires are natural and necessary for health, friendship, tranquility, which are natural but unnecessary, luxuries, excess, and which are vain or harmful. Emotions that arise from unnecessary or vain desires are to be managed, not by repression, but by adjusting expectations, by cultivating gratitude, clarity, and by choosing simpler lives. Epicureans value the pleasure of the calm mind, friendship, absence of pain, and believe that experiencing positive emotion, joy, peace, contentment, is essential, not just as reward but as central to well-being. Both schools highly value virtue, but with different reasons and weights. For the Stoic, virtue is sufficient for happiness. If you live a life of wisdom, courage, justice, self-control, then no external bad, loss, illness, poverty, can truly harm your inner well-being. Virtue is its own reward. A virtuous person remains steady under adversity, unmoved by praise or blame. For the Epicurean, virtue is instrumental. Virtue is not the highest end, but a means to the highest end. Pleasure, understood as the absence of pain and the presence of tranquility. Virtue is necessary because it helps avoid states that cause suffering, because virtuous behavior supports friendship, because self-discipline helps avoid regrets, guilt, or anxiety, things that spoil pleasure. Here's where the difference becomes vivid. Stoic flourishing is about inner strength, resilience, tranquility born of virtue and reason, freedom from passions, at least destructive ones, and alignment with universal nature. Stoic happiness is robust, steady, even when life turns grim. It is less vulnerable to external upheavals, losses, and misfortune. Epicurean happiness is about maximizing pleasure in a broad sense. Physical comfort, mental peace, freedom from anxiety, friendship, simple living. It acknowledges that externals matter, to some extent, health, safety, friendships, because without them suffering overtakes. But it emphasizes managing desires, choosing wisely, appreciating small joys, reducing fear and pain. After seeing both, I'll take the side. Epicureanism offers a more realistic, humane, and happier guide for life, especially in our modern world. Here's why. In modern life, many people suffer not from external loss or misfortune alone, but from internal pressure, anxiety, expectations, social comparison, fear of missing out. Stoicism gives tools for reframing, for developing resilience, but can sound like insistence on suppressing natural human longing, emotion, joy. Epicureanism, by contrast, allows more room for emotional flavor, joy, pleasure, friendship. It doesn't idealize hardship as some heroic test. It values comfort and peace. It suggests we attend to what truly matters for feeling happy, not simply what is virtuous under abstract ideals. In doing so, it gives us space to live fully, not just stoically endure. Stoic virtue is noble. But if virtue is valued only because it is virtue, without connection to human flourishing, some virtues risk becoming burdensome. For example, enduring hardship for its own sake can lead to burnout, denial of pleasure, or alienation. Epicureanism ties virtue to well-being. Virtue prevents suffering, increases tranquility, supports friendship, reduces regret. We follow virtue because it leads to a life we want. This makes ethics more attractive, more motivating in real life. We feel more incentive to act well when our ethical living is tied to our happiness, not simply to duty. One of the biggest battles in modern mental life is fear. Fear of loss, death, failure, the unknown. Stoicism offers reframing. Many things are not in our control. Focus on what is. That is helpful. But sometimes that demands a lot of inner self-discipline, stoic acceptance in face of pain, loss, injustice. Epicureanism offers another powerful medicine. Reduce unnecessary desires, dismantle fears about death or gods, focus on what gives tranquility. It bypasses certain anxieties by showing they are built on misunderstanding or overly ambitious expectations. When people accept that death is not something to fear, or that luxury beyond basic comfort adds more anxiety than pleasure, a huge burden lifts. The fear of losing something, or of what might happen, gradually diminishes in power. Stoicism can sometimes feel like a path for the very disciplined, or for those who have already withstood hardship. It emphasizes self-control, endurance, greatness of spirit. Epicureanism, while not a free pass for indulgence, is more forgiving. It asks fewer extremes. It welcomes simple pleasures. It emphasizes friendship, quiet, mental peace. This makes it more accessible to people juggling work, family, health, modern anxieties. It fits a wider range of temperaments and circumstances. Every view has challenges. Let's look at some objections to Epicureanism and how it responds. Objection A. Isn't Epicureanism too soft? Doesn't it encourage avoidance, comfort-seeking, or weakness? Response. Epicureanism doesn't advocate laziness or surrender. It argues for wise choices about comfort and pain, sometimes forgoing some pleasure for greater peace, sometimes enduring discomfort when virtue and real friendship are at stake. Strength is present too. The strength to resist vain desires, the strength to face fears, the strength to simplify and choose moderation. That requires courage. Objection B. Without focusing purely on virtue, do we lose moral backbone? Response. Virtue remains central in Epicureanism, not as the ultimate end alone, but as essential means. Without virtue, pleasures become shallow, selfish, or harmful. The Epicurean holds that justice, honesty, self-control all matter because they contribute to sustainable happiness. Moral backbone is preserved, just integrated with pleasure and tranquility. Objection C. Can pleasure be durable? Won't chasing pleasure lead to disappointment? Response. Epicureans distinguish between kinds of pleasures. They favor enduring, stable pleasures, mental tranquility, health, friendship, and avoid chasing transitory, risky, or excessive pleasures that end in pain or regret. They teach moderation, reflection, learning to want what is necessary, to reduce expectations, so disappointments are fewer and mitigated. To make this more concrete, here's how choosing an Epicurean guide to happiness might change daily life. Prioritizing friendships, spending time with people, cultivating trust, love, shared laughter. Simplifying desires, being satisfied with simple food, simple pleasures, rather than endlessly upgrading, buying more, expecting extravagance. Managing expectations, being aware that some desires are socially encouraged but not essential, choosing which ones to have. Reflecting on death or impermanence, realizing that we are finite makes what we have more precious. Focusing on mental peace, meditation, gratitude, mindfulness, letting go of fears or comparisons. Acting virtuously, but because virtue supports well-being, promotes harmony, not purely to meet an ideal. To be fair, Stoicism has tremendous strengths. The discipline, the ability to face adversity, the stress on inner resilience, commitment to justice, these are powerful resources. In suffering loss, injustice, Stoic teachings can be a lifeline. An ideal approach could borrow from both. Cultivate the Stoic strength to endure, the Stoic clarity about what is in our control. Combine that with Epicurean valuing of pleasure, comfort, friendship, tranquility. Yet, if choosing which path more reliably leads one to a happy life in modern conditions, I believe Epicureanism is the stronger guide. Epicureanism and Stoicism both offer profound paths to flourish. Stoicism leads us to heroism of the soul, moral steadfastness, endurance. Epicureanism leads us to joy, peace, manageable living, emotional richness, all undergirded by virtue, wisdom, and awareness. In our complicated, fast-paced, often anxious world, Epicureanism tends to offer more immediate and sustainable happiness. It invites us to cultivate pleasure wisely, to reduce fear, to value friendship and mental calm, and to virtue not as rigid duty, but as essential support for a life well lived. If I must choose, I choose Epicureanism as a more humane, more balanced, more joy-friendly philosophy for the way we live now. If you found this comparison helpful, if it sharpened your own thoughts on what happiness truly means, I invite you to subscribe to The Unfolding Journey. Like this video if you agree, or even if you disagree, and share it with someone who might benefit. In the comments, let me know which philosophy appeals more to you, Stoicism or Epicureanism, and why. Thank you for watching. May your journey unfold in virtue, pleasure, peace, and wisdom.